Hey there, I'm Tony Nicopol. This is The Uplift. We got a great show for you, a great cast of characters as well, among them these. A former foster child who's committed to recognizing kids like him. We will show you the simple way he and his family bring comfort to children who need it. Another former foster child who found his place in the world underwater and the record-setting adventure he recently went on. Also, the unlikely friendship between a former inmate and a governor's wife, how they teamed up to help other women who went to prison. And a man who helped save the lives of more than 2 million babies over 60 years ago. How the heck did he do that? You'll find out. All of that and more heartwarming news. You know what you're watching? The Uplift. Hey there, welcome to The Uplift, the show that lifts you up for at least the next 30 minutes, you and me as well. And we begin with the story of a man who helped save the lives of an incredible 2.4 million babies. Caitlin O'Kane shows us how.
He was known as the man with the golden arm. James Harrison has donated plasma more than 1,100 times and saved the lives of more than 2.4 million babies. It all started when he was 14 years old. James, born in Junee, Australia, was in need of several life-saving blood transfusions himself. When he woke up in the ICU, he had the urge to give back. His father was a blood donor, and he encouraged James to start donating blood in 1954 at the age of 18. James's blood contained the rare antibody known as anti-D. When women with an Rh-negative blood type get pregnant, there's a risk their immune system will attack their fetus's red blood cells. Anti-D was discovered in the 1960s, and pregnant mothers around the world have relied on donors like James, who have the rare and potentially life-saving cure. Very few people have the anti-D antibody in their blood, and when James found out he could donate blood to save lives, he did, and never stopped for 63 years, even though he has an aversion to needles. James selflessly donated blood every 2 weeks until he was 81 years old and decided to retire. In his decades as a donor, James became a father and then a grandfather, and when his daughter Tracy became pregnant, she became an anti-D recipient herself and said that her family may not have existed without her father's precious donations. Tracy said, "He always said it doesn't hurt, and the life you save could be your own." Stephen Cornelison, CEO of Australian Red Cross Lifeblood, said James leaves behind an incredible legacy. James extended his arm to help others and babies he would never know a remarkable 1,173 times and expected nothing in return. He continued to donate even in his darkest days after the passing of his wife Barbara, who was also a blood donor and helped inspire his career as a lifesaver. James Harrison passed away in February at the age of 88. But the Lifeblood team is hoping that his legacy lives on with what they call James in a jar. Researchers are hoping to grow anti-D in the lab using the antibodies of James and other donors. They've already had success doing so and hope it will one day prevent the disease in women and babies around the world. 63 years, 2.4 million babies saved, more than 1,100 donations, but one heart, James's heart, which provided the lifeblood for so many, and today still beats on.
Kids around the country recently celebrated Read Across America Day. It's appropriately observed on the birthday of Theodore Geisel, better known as Dr. Seuss. Elise Preston looks at the legacy of the famed children's author.
Outlines of the author's earliest ideas adorn the Geisel Library at the University of California, San Diego.
It's still very much Dr. Seuss's stamp.
Very much so.
And Special Collections Director Linda Clausen holds the key to the archives of Theodore Geisel himself, better known by his pseudonym, Dr. Seuss.
Now, if you're in a receptive state, I'll recapitulate.
These are some of his original drawings for Cat in the Hat.
Between these walls are more than 15,000 items, the blueprint of an artist who was always creative and often subversive.
Here's the cat just being his crazy self.
Could you read this passage for us?
"Have no fear," said the cat. "I will not let you fall. I will hold you up high as I stand on a ball, with a book in one hand and a cup in my hat. But that is not all I can do, said the cat.
In 1953, Dr. Seuss wrote The Cat in the Hat using only 236 words. He was responding to a national debate about literacy and how to hold children's interest when competing with the television. Decades later, childhood literacy is still a concern. 40% of U.S. students can't read at a basic level.
It's so important to grab them at a young age.
That's so true, and I think the colors do that, the rhyming scheme does that, and if you can get children reading when they're young like that, it will stay with you.
Throughout his career, Seuss wrote more than 6 books under 4 pen names, along with television specials, hundreds of advertisements, and political cartoons.
It's sort of do-nothing Congresses, inflation, high taxes. Gosh, we still have all of those issues, don't we?
For Dr. Seuss, one message always shines through, and to sum it up, only his words will do. The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. Elise Preston, CBS News, La Jolla, California.
Coming up, we introduce you to 2 former foster kids leaving their mark on the world, one by helping other kids in foster care feel a sense of comfort, the other traveling the world to set a new record exploring underwater worlds. Those stories and more coming up. When Rob Scheer became a foster parent, he realized life had not changed much for foster kids since he himself was a foster kid. So to lessen the burden on children in foster care, he and his family focus on bringing them simple comforts. Here's Nancy Cordes with the story.
Dad wants to take a picture.
The Scheer family isn't bound by blood.
Your brother doesn't have anything on his pizza.
Not yet.
But by shared experience. Rob Scheer and his 5 kids each made their own journey through the foster care system with a trash bag in tow.
This was right before I went into foster care.
Rob was 12 the first time a caseworker told him to shove his belongings in a trash bag to escape an abusive home. The pattern would repeat until he turned 18.
And that's when they gave me my trash bag and I became homeless.
Years later, when Rob and his husband Reese adopted through foster care, they were surprised at how little had changed.
Did your kids come to you with trash bags?
You know, that was the aha moment for me. When my children arrived and each one of them had a trash bag, I knew we as a society had failed.
That moment drove him to start Comfort Cases, a nonprofit that replaces trash bags with luggage for kids in foster care.
Every single child gets a brand new pair of pajamas. We make sure they have a tag on it. And then our volunteers come in and they actually ribbon all of our pajamas because we want our kids to know that this is a gift.
To date, Comfort Cases has delivered more than 250,000 cases to children across the U.S.
And the one most important thing, that every child who comes into our foster care system deserves dignity and hope. And how do you do that? Don't give them a trash bag.
To carry your stuff in a trash bag, it makes you feel like this is your fault, you're worth nothing. None of this stuff is worth anything to anyone else.
Ashley Baker grew up in more than a dozen Pennsylvania foster homes and attended 7 high schools. Just like Rob, she was given a trash bag each time she moved.
What did it feel like to be toting around your whole life in a garbage bag?
Definitely, it was very overwhelming to see your things in that way and not on your dresser anymore, or the stuffed animals aren't on your bed anymore, they're in a bag.
Slowly, things are shifting. In the past 2 years, Maryland, Texas, and Oregon have all banned the use of trash bags in foster care. Similar legislation was recently introduced in New York City.
I thought, I'll grow up to be the change maker, but to find out there's others who want to make that change, it's so heartwarming to know.
The goal is to get laws passed in all 50 states so that every foster kid gets a backpack, a duffel bag, anything that tells them they matter. Nancy Cordes, Gaithersburg, Maryland.
Coming up, he went from a foster kid in the Bronx to a world traveler hoping to set a new record. We introduce you now to the man who went to the new depths just to make history. We introduce you now to another former foster child who found his place in the world underwater. Skylar Henry talked with him about his record-setting accomplishments.
Plunging into the ocean is second nature to Barrington Scott.
Scuba diving, it's really therapeutic for me. When I'm underwater, I'm like calm and collective.
About 65 feet down is where he feels most at peace. Scott, who learned how to swim after enlisting in the Marines, scuba dived for the first time more than 10 years ago in the Bahamas.
It's a whole different environment, you know. I was just overstimulated. It was just amazing.
And that first experience took him down a path to keep exploring the waters.
How does a kid go from the Bronx to diving more than 400 times?
Oh, how much time do we have?
Scott spent his early years in the Bronx, New York, in foster care until he was adopted at 12 years old.
There's something about the open water that I think is intimidating,
Right.
especially for people who look like us.
Right, 100%.
What do you think it is that helped you become more acclimated to it? Because it sure wasn't growing up in the Bronx.
No, sure wasn't. Just growing up, I was always that kid trying new things. I think it was that the openness to just anything, eliminate that fear of trying new things.
The 33-year-old has come face to face with a world of waters, each offering its own surprises and wonders.
What's been your most exciting dive?
I would say Antarctica.
Really?
Yes! Because it's not common. Like, you just can't go to Antarctica and be like, oh, I'm just gonna go scuba diving.
What did you see?
Nothing. I saw nothing, which I was so disappointed. But I mean, it made up for it by, again, just diving icebergs.
Last November, he embarked on a 30,000-mile expedition to scuba dive on all 7 continents.
Dive number 3, Alexandria, Egypt. Let's go, baby!
He didn't just want to go underwater. His goal, set a Guinness World Records title for the fastest dive on all 7.
Did you see something and say, I want to try to do this?
You know, it was a spontaneous moment for me.
Well, I want to show you something.
Okay.
Hit play on that.
Okay, let's see what we got here.
My name is Andy Glass, and I'm an official adjudicator with Guinness World Records. With a mark to beat of 30 days, you have officially set a new Guinness World Records title for the fastest time to scuba dive in all 7 continents, achieving an incredible mark of 19 days, 19 hours, and 40 minutes. Congratulations, Barrington, you are officially amazing.
What? I would say I'm definitely shocked and excited, proud.
Miami was the site of one of Scott's 7 dives, and our team wanted to experience what it's like going down with him. So ace diving took us about 3 miles off the coast.
1, 2, 3.
Make no mistake, diving is serious business. And even in the winter months in Florida, the ocean can be somewhat cold. But at 30 feet down, it was a peaceful experience.
One of the things that I noticed when I was down there was you kind of forget everything else.
Exactly.
Is that why you keep coming back to it?
That's what it is. I didn't have a lot of outlets prior to scuba diving, you know, a lot of coping or like places where I can just be at peace. Every dive is a journey, right?
And scuba diving is at the heart of Scott's journey, learning life lessons one adventure at a time. I'm Skylar Henry in Miami.
Coming up, how a woman who had been in prison for murder created a strong partnership and bond with the First Lady of Illinois, and how the two then joined forces to help other women formerly behind bars.
I want you to say to me what she means to you.
I look at her as someone that I can trust, someone that is a friend, believes in me, and someone that did not second guess her decision when she hired me.
She brings an intelligence and a vigor to this work that I don't think anybody else could do. I believe in Willette. I think there's good in every person, and there's really a whole lot of good in Willette. We're not a couple.
We're called the Force.
Force, because we
get stuff done.
We get it done.
Sometimes all it takes is one person to believe in you to change your life forever. In this case, it was the First Lady of Illinois who believed in a formerly incarcerated woman. David Begnaud shows us how the two joined forces to help others.
These two women have formed an unlikely alliance. The First Lady of Illinois, M.K. Pritzker, and Willette Binford, who served 24 years in prison.
Is this the first time you're seeing her room?
First time.
Yeah, first time.
This was the room that Binford called home for the first year of her life after prison. Inside of Grace House, a residential program in Chicago that supports women exiting the prison system.
It was the first room that I was in that I could literally walk in and out of, and not have to worry about someone locking me in it.
In 1995, Binford was sentenced to 50 years in prison for first-degree murder. Binford says she was in a violent same-sex relationship, and she tried to flee one night.
I ran and jumped in my car. She jumped on the hood of the car, and I pulled off. Not knowing the area, I turned around and came back up the street, and that's when they said I hit her.
Binford says, and court records reveal, that her attorney advised her to hide the details of the domestic violence because she was in a same-sex relationship, and the attorney feared that might turn off the jury.
None of the domestic violence, the times I had her arrested or the times I went to the hospital, none of that was talked about in court. After I was incarcerated, I got my GED.
In 2016, there was an amendment to an Illinois law that added abuse as a factor to consider its sentencing. Because of that, Willette Binford became eligible for resentencing.
You got credit for time served?
I got credit for time served, and I was released on February 6, 2019. How many women do you think are sitting in prison that didn't get the opportunity that I got?
That's what I'm saying.
I am what it looks like to give someone a fair chance, not a handout, but a hand up.
And that takes us to 2022. Chicago's mayor wanted to brand the city as a place for second chances. So she hired Binford as the city's first director of reentry for people leaving prison re-entering society. There, Binford helped to reform background checks for 2,500 city jobs so that some convictions would not disqualify candidates from getting employment. Her record on the job impressed Illinois' First Lady M.K. Pritzker, who offered Binford a top job as Pritzker's senior advisor on women's issues.
Everybody at some point in their life needs someone who believes in them. Mm-hmm. I want you to say to me what she means to you.
I look at her as someone that I can trust, someone that is a friend, believes in me, and someone that did not second guess her decision when she hired me.
She brings an intelligence and a vigor to this work that I don't think anybody else could do. I believe in Willette. I think there's good in every person, and there's really a whole lot of good in Willette. We're an odd couple.
We're called the Force.
Because we
get stuff done.
We get it done.
And they have got the receipts to show for it.
We worked strategically to support the closure of Logan Correctional Center, which
it's closed?
We're closing it.
We're closing it.
You are closing the former place where you were incarcerated. Wow.
And the reason why is because the living conditions were horrible, and they still are.
Rebuilding a facility that is more therapeutic is very helpful. I think it's helpful to the residents of the facility, and it's also very beneficial to the people that work there. Mm-hmm. So what are we having here today?
When the First Lady travels with Binford, she does a lot of listening. Some of the stories that she's heard drove her and Binford to launch a pilot program to support 100 women returning home after incarceration. The program offers subsidized housing, job training, and even childcare.
Give people an opportunity to better themselves and get a good paying job rather than spend the money on incarcerating them.
And poverty is a driver of incarceration.
Look, by now you can tell that Pritzker and Binford have a pretty strong heart connection, but they come from completely different worlds.
I landed in the lucky tub. You know, and that's really the only thing that separates Willette and I could be Willette.
M.K. Pritzker married the billionaire heir of the Hyatt Hotels fortune, J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois. Her first official visit as First Lady of Illinois was to a women's prison, and she got an earful there. She left there fired up to fix one particular issue for women and men leaving the prison system.
They couldn't get a state ID when they got out, that it was darn near impossible. They didn't have a birth certificate, they don't have social security cards, you can't open a bank account. I mean, you can't do anything.
So what did you do?
And I went home and I said, JB, can you believe this? And I said, JB, we have to fix this.
And they did. Willette Benford was at M.K. Pritzker's side when last year Governor Pritzker signed the new law, ensuring that people leaving prison now have at least the dignity of an ID to validate who they are.
You know, the lesson is you just really shouldn't judge people. You need to give people grace. And it's really amazing what two women from two completely different backgrounds can do when they join forces.
Which takes us back to Grace House and that room, still filled with so much emotion.
Inhale courage, that's what I wanted to do, and exhale any kind of fear that I might thought I felt.
It's tough, but is it also rewarding for her to stand here and see it and feel it?
Yeah, so she'll know. She knows, but I think she knows in a different way now.
Another home run from David Begnaud, and that is our show. I hope it brightens your day. I hope it lifted you up. If for some reason it didn't, press play again. I'm gonna go find some good news. Reruns are free.